Good evening and welcome to the January 14th, 2026 Safety Committee. It's 4:45. A couple new members up here, so welcome. First item on our agenda this evening is approval of minutes. If you've had a chance to review those, I'd entertain any changes or a motion to approve.
Go ahead.
I move to approve the minutes from the last meeting.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Minutes are approved. Seeing no visitors in chambers this evening, we'll go ahead and move into chief reports, and we'll start with Police Chief Garland.
Thank you, Mr. Yurchak. In the interest of restructuring the way we do our monthly reports, I'll just touch on some of the statistics that really stand out. A lot of the numbers don't change from month to month, but I'll be happy to entertain any questions if you see something that you want clarification on or just some additional explanation. So we ended up 2025 with 20,224 calls for service that were combined between police, fire, and EMS. And that was a little bit over a 2% increase from 2024. That's not a big surprise. I expect to see those calls for service increase every year just as the city grows in size and population. We just become busier across all different fronts. On page 2 with the patrol division statistics, in 2025 we ended the year with 3,857 traffic stops made by the officers, and that was over a 23% increase from 2024. The traffic stops not only, of course, have the target of improving traffic safety throughout the neighborhoods and throughout the city, but it also drives other activity. When they're making those traffic stops, they're discovering OVIs, driving under suspension, drug-related activity, warrants, all sorts of different reasons. So not only are we getting the benefit of the community traffic safety improvement, but we're also getting those other activities, other criminal activities that they discover when they're making those traffic stops. Looking at the non-private property crash reports that were handled in 2025, we had a 6% increase in the number of property damage, injury, and fatal crashes combined. Had a slight increase in the OVIs from last year. And we had 9 SWAT incidents throughout the county compared to 3 in 2024. We belong to a multi-jurisdictional SWAT team, the Medina County SWAT team, and we have 4 officers that are on that team, and they will respond to incidents across Medina and parts of Wayne County. Any questions on those first few pages of statistics?
The increase in traffic stops, was that like an intentional, you guys were out there trying to do more stops?
I would say that the biggest factor with the increase in traffic stops is the younger officers that we brought into the department. When we bring new officers in, we really encourage them to get out there and be motivated to make stops, do self-initiated activity, because we want them to not only show us that they have the abilities that we hired them for, but also to improve their skills and their knowledge. The more they get out there and do, the quicker they acquire those skills and that knowledge, just helps improve their overall job performance. And it's also one way to, again, to prove that they're able to do the job and they're able to get into all sorts of different things. So yeah, we encourage them to get out there and do as much as they can. And plus, they're very motivated because they want to do the job, and that's what they got into the job to do. And the more success they have, the more they want to get out there and do and get involved in the OVIs and the drug cases and things like that.
So not an indication of something we need to be concerned about?
Nothing to be concerned about. We always have traffic safety on our mind, so we're encouraging the department as a whole to be mindful of that. But I'd say that this increase is primarily due to the newer officers that we brought on the past couple of years.
Thank you.
Is there an average age or is it across the spectrum from young to older?
As far as the makeup of the officers?
No, with the people that have been cited for the OVI and the drug use.
I don't have that in front of me. I can check with our administrative assistant to see if she can pull that data from our records management system.
somewhere in the information you sent over. It's a breakdown of ages for maybe
So
last
we,
year.
on an annual level,
Yeah.
will provide, with certain statistics, kind of some breakdowns in those stats to look at ages, gender. I think even in like use of force, for example, there's a racial breakdown as well too, just to kind of get an overall feel for that, and also to keep out to make sure that you're not finding that, hey, this is strange. Why are all the traffic stops directed at this one population or vice versa? So it's there's also some state reporting requirements as well too that we have to have the ability to do that and check that on an annual basis.
Who are our agencies that we work with SWAT?
We have several agencies in the county that make up the Medina County SWAT team. In addition to the 4 officers that we have on the team, the Medina County Sheriff's Office, of course, has several deputies that are on the team. There's also officers from the City of Medina, Brunswick City, Hinckley Township, Montville Township, Medina Township, Brunswick Hills, and recently the Wayne County Sheriff's Office.
Oh, okay.
Any other questions before I move on? Moving on to page 5. The one statistic that really jumps out is the total arrests from 2025. We ended the year with 469 arrests, which is a 10% decrease from 2024. On the surface, that looks like a huge decrease, and wondering why we're arresting less people than we did the prior year. But there are some reasons for that. And if you look at the next table below that, where it says arrest booking by arrest type, you'll see that the physical arrests were 233 compared to 199 from 2024. But then those warrant arrests were really down from the previous year. Those warrant arrests are really influenced by other agencies. We commonly encounter subjects from Summit County, Cuyahoga County, different counties that have warrants. And when we call those agencies, they're either not able to take them because of overcrowding in their jails, or they don't have the manpower to come get them. So we're still encountering these people on a regular basis, but if the agency does not honor that warrant and request that we arrest them, then that arrest is not made and that warrant arrest is not counted. So that's probably the largest driver for the decrease in the total number of arrests from last year.
Chief, would you be able to provide some explanation as to what the different arrest types are, the physical, the summons, and the warrants, and what we're looking at when we're looking at that?
Of course. A physical arrest, of course, is physically putting somebody in handcuffs from an OEI, theft offense, some other criminal act that the officers either observed or they have probable cause to make a warrantless arrest. So that's on the surface pretty much how that is described. With a summons, a lot of times those are a result of having a minor shoplifter up at Walmart. So they only maybe stole about $25 worth of merchandise, and it's not worth arresting them at the time to put them in jail. So they're just issued a summons and summoned into court at a later date. We use that tool pretty frequently. The benefit is, they're probably a first-time offender. They may have small children with them. There's just some reason that it's not really an advantage to take them to jail at that particular time. So a lot of times they're just given a written summons in order to appear at court at a later date. And then, like I alluded to earlier, the warrant is just it's an arrest warrant that's entered into the lead's computer system, and it could be a failure to appear, or it could be a criminal charge that they have not been arraigned on yet. And we encounter that person either on a traffic stop or some other activity. And when they're checked in leads, it shows that they have that warrant and they're wanted by another agency. And we arrest them and turn them over to that other agency. Of course, we enter our own warrants into the computer also. And when we execute those warrants, then that's counted as a warrant arrest. The officer of the month in December was Detective James Allenby. Detective Allenby's been with the department for since 2013. He works in the Detective Bureau, and as most of our cases that are in the Detective Bureau, they're usually pretty complex and take a lot of time, a lot of skill. A lot of times they last several weeks, if not several months. In December, Detective Allenby, worked on and successfully resolved a number of complex cases, some of which were related to sexual assaults. He's an excellent communicator, has excellent interviewing skills, and that goes a long way when dealing with suspects and victims and witnesses, and being able to put those cases together and really elicit the information that's needed in order to prosecute these cases. One of the great things about Detective Allenby is not only does he have the skill to solve these cases, but he goes way above and beyond and provides for these victims and setting them up with resources and agencies in the county where they can get counseling and just resources to help them, whether it's heal from some sort of assault or help with some financial benefits that they might need depending on the situation for which they're a victim. He's always one of those people that treats everyone with respect and dignity. He does all sorts of extra things for the department besides his detective bureau duties. He's a member of the SWAT team. He's a drug recognition expert. He's a CVSA examiner, and he's also the Wadsworth FOP president. So he's got a huge amount of respect, not only with our officers here in the department, but also he's very well renowned throughout the county. In December, we had a number of great opportunities to do community outreach. We had our annual Cops and Kids Christmas shopping event with the community of children. If you look at that photo in the bottom right-hand corner there, it shows the entire group of people, the kids and all the volunteers who came out that day to work that event. It's a huge event. It's our favorite event during the year, and it's always very, very successful. We also did our annual Feeding Medina County food distribution, where police officers and personnel from the fire department come out and help distribute the food for the Feeding Medina County organization down at the football stadium. That's always a great event and just gives us the ability to give back to the community. We also had officers participate in manning the Salvation Army donation kettles at Bueller's and Giant Eagle. So I had a number of police officers and, again, personnel from the fire department that participated in that opportunity also. Sergeant Dan Schunk had his promotional ceremony. He was promoted to sergeant earlier in December, and then we had the ceremony on December 22nd. And then we had our year-end annual department meeting on December 30th. During that department meeting, we just talk about the year, we do a recap, we talk about achievements, we talk about personnel changes, we talk about goals leading into the new year, and we also recognize the officers who received awards during the year. One different thing about 2025 is we issued or awarded 4 life-saving awards to officers in 2025. And there were some really great heroic actions by our officers to participate in life-saving measures for citizens in the community. So that was a great thing to see in 2025, and having 4 of those awards in 1 year is pretty significant for us. That's all for my report. Do you have any questions?
Okay, thank you for that. We'll go ahead and move into the fire report. Chief Linder.
Thank you, Mr. Yurchek. So I will start off with our fire department numbers. And again, just as Chief Dorland said, I'm not going to hit on everything, but if there is questions, please stop and ask. So for the fire numbers for the month of December, we had a total of 28. 14 of those were within the city, 10 were in the township. I know we do have new members on here. So the fire and EMS, we have a contract with the township to provide fire and EMS. The police issues is actually through the sheriff's office for the township, but we do provide EMS and fire for the township. So we had 10 calls out in the township. We did provide mutual aid on 4 occasions. We did call for mutual aid once. We had about 25 officer checkouts, so odor investigations, carbon monoxide checks on those occasions, 25. The biggest thing, usually what I look at it is our response to fire calls. How many people are we getting? So we're a combination department. We have full-time members at the station, and then we also have part-time members that fill in as well for additional shifts. So the average firefighter on duty, so this is firefighters working at the fire station, we had just under around 5 members at the station when the call came in. Recall was just over 2 people coming back for a call. So our average total firefighter turnout for December was just over 7 people on that. When you look at 24 to 25, it was a slight decrease. It looks high as 9%, but you're going from 8.2 to 7.46. So a little slight decrease on the total number of members that we have.
Chief, could you
Yes,
just
sir.
explain, just for the new members,
Yep.
kind of how the recall works and how
Yep.
that factors in to these numbers? Just
Sure.
that's kind of always something that we're discussing on a constant basis.
Yep.
These numbers, and I just want to make
Absolutely.
sure they're really clear with what that
So the
means.
firefighter on duty, so we have shifts at the station, so the full-timers are working at the station for 24 hours, but the part-time members, they have different hours that they will be working at the station. So that's what we'll call our firefighters on duty. The recall is members that aren't full-time, they're on the department, they may be at home, they may be out driving in the community, shopping. When a fire call comes in, they will respond back to the station. So that's our recall, is members that currently aren't working at the station, they're at home or wherever they are, that they come back to the station to handle that call. So that will be our recall. Taking those two numbers together, so what we have on duty and the members that are recalled, that gives us our total firefighter turnout for the averages. Did that explain it, or?
Yeah, well, one more part of that. So when the average, when the recall goes out, does that go to every part-time member that's in the department?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, when we get a call, every member on the department most everybody, we have pagers that they'll have at home, but most everybody now with technology, they get it on their phone as well.
And so if you had multiple people respond, let's say it goes out to everyone, and let's say you had 7 guys show back up, are all 7 of those guys then going out on that call?
Not necessarily, it depends on the call. It may be let's for example, a motor vehicle accident, and we need one piece of equipment, an engine on there. Or it could be, so we only use one, and everybody's basically staying at the station in case we do need additional equipment, or if there's an additional fire call that comes in, they can go and respond to that one. Or it could be, for example, we had a call today that we had 3 pieces of equipment that had to respond out to a call. So as the volunteer or the part-time members, as they come back in, they'll grab the additional equipment and head out there. It all depends on the call basis of what type of call it is and what equipment's needed.
And then is your mutual aid sometimes driven by the number of recalls you get? And then if you're short in the department and another alarm goes off, now you guys are not only probably calling for a second recall, you're also calling for mutual aid?
Yeah, on the fire side, usually when we call mutual aid, it's usually a bigger structure fire. But we could use it for a regular fire call where we're already tied up on one call and another alarm comes in or some other call comes in, and all of our resources are already tasked on that first one. We would call them on whatever that additional call is. That's when we would call mutual aid. Majority of the time, I like to think we can handle, at least on the fire side, most all of our calls that come in. It's usually a big fire is where we're going to call the mutual aid, but it could happen that we get 2 fire calls back to back, and that does happen.
Yeah.
On the EMS side, we usually use mutual aid a little bit more when a lot of times we have 3 or 4 ambulance calls, and may not have the additional resources, or the first 3 ambulances are out of transporting to a hospital, and then we get additional EMS call. That's where they will handle the call directly. That whatever mutual aid company that we call, they'll handle that.
Who do we usually call first?
It depends where it's at in the city. We're kind of breaking the city in quadrants. So if it's somewhere on the north end, we're usually going to call Sharon. On the southern end, we're usually going to call Chippewa or Rittman. So.
And Chief, with your part-time members, and it's a fair assessment, and you can speak to this better than I can, but they typically have either a full-time job at another department or a completely other job outside of the fire service, or might be working multiple part-time jobs. So some of the recall issue also comes into, well, they're at their primary job, they're on duty at another fire station, and aren't available to respond.
Correct.
Is that accurate?
Yes, accurate. We have members that, they're working their normal day job, so they're only available, they can't respond during the day. In the evening, overnight, if there's a call, then they'll respond on that. We do have quite a few members that are on multiple departments. So if they're not working for us, they may be working for Rittman or Chippewa, or, they work for different agencies as well.
Okay, thank you for that explanation. That's just a number that we pay a lot of attention to, because you'll very few months do we see that as a positive increase, but we're constantly trying to figure out how to recall more firefighters. So it's just one number that we've paid a lot of attention to.
Absolutely.
When that call goes out, do they respond, via text or whatever, and then you say, yes, we need you, or do they all just show up?
They all just show up, but they show up at the station, not on scene. They will show up to the station.
And then everybody that shows up, is there some sort of base pay that you get if you're showing up for that call?
Yes, for every part-time member, there's a 3-hour, they get paid for 3 hours, whether the call is 15 minutes or it's 2 hours or 3 hours. They will get paid for that when they come back to the station.
Chief, that was a relatively recent history change, right?
Yes, we just recently changed that within the past 2 years. It used to be, prior to that, it was 1 hour. And as Mr. Yurchek was mentioning, that's one of the things that we're looking at, is how many firefighters are we getting back. And one of the ways we were trying to increase that number was, instead of getting paid for 1 hour, we changed it to 3, hoping that it would actually encourage people to come back. In one sense it has. And usually what we see, and this average, the firefighter recall, it's an average. And I will say, there's certain calls where we see more people come back than others. To us as firefighters, if it sounds like it's a good call, to us it's a good call. To the community, it's not, but that's what we do. So if it sounds like it's a structure fire, we're probably going to get 10, 12 people that come back. If it's a fire alarm that we've responded to a couple times in the past month or 2 months in the middle of the night, usually we see that number go down, because in some people's mind they think, oh, we were just there, it's nothing. So it usually sometimes will depend on what the call sounds like, is how many people we actually get.
So if they are off duty
Mm-hmm.
and they're not on the clock and they get the call,
Yes.
is there anything contractually that says, let's say that they're out eating at Marie's or something, and they don't respond?
Mm-hmm.
That
There's nothing in it. I can't force people. I'm not paying them. I can't force them to come back.
Okay.
No. Now, we look at it, especially in our year-end evaluations, how many times, we look at how many calls we actually had and how
who
many
showed up
times.
and who didn't.
If I have a member that, we've had, 290 calls and you've actually only come back 3 times, there's something going on. So we discuss and talk about that.
Yeah.
And it's like, all right, is this something you really want to do? We need you to show up. We count on you. So that's looked at in their evaluations,
Okay.
end of year evaluations.
I just wondered, if it's something serious and they choose to just sit and not
Yeah.
help.
Yeah. I'm not aware of anybody doing that, but
I can't
has it happened?
imagine, but-
I'm sure it has happened. But we all got into this job to help the community and everything. So
Well, I would
most of the time,
assume
they
most
will
people
come.
would want to help, but
Yeah. Good questions.
Thank you.
All right, moving on to the second page. This is where we start with our EMS calls. So for the month of December, we had a total of 308 calls, which is slightly up for us. Again, we break this down. So within the city, we had 272 EMS calls. In the township, there was 30. And then we had 6 that weren't in either the city or the township. They were in whether that was mutual aid or we got called to, for example, the Medina line, and it was on Norton's side, not ours. So that would be out of our district. So for the yearly total, that put us for EMS calls at 3,207 on that. Looking at the bottom, this again breakdown, one of the things that we look at is, again, mutual aid, how many times we received or we had to give mutual aid. This also breaks down second, third, fourth ambulances. There's been occasions we'll have 5 EMS calls. We only have 4 ambulances, so that's a guarantee that we'll have to call mutual aid. One of the things, we are starting to see our call volume went up, so we did see additional third ambulance calls where we have all 3 ambulances out all at the same time. There was an increase from 24 to 25. So that's something we'll just keep an eye on for a trend if we continue to see that in 2026.
Just one question on there.
Sure.
Do you happen to know what the yearly total was for last year?
For all the calls?
Well, what's the year over year from 25 to 24?
For EMS?
Yeah, for EMS.
So on the next page,
Okay.
I actually have that.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. So on the next page, so in 2024, we had 2,970. 25, we ended at 3,207, which is an 8% increase from 24 to 25. And then right below that is total calls for service. So this includes fire and EMS calls. So we finished the year, it was a record year for us, 3,640, which is an 8% increase from 24. So that averages almost about 10 calls a day, is what between the 2 stations combined. And then on the top, just our hospital transports, about 32% for the year went to Wadsworth. The rest, everything else is out of the city.
Chief, just briefly, that actually has impacts on your crews and what they're doing based on where they're transporting. I guess maybe just a quick explanation as
sure.
to why that might be important.
So the more transports we do out of the city, which we try to go off of the patient's request where they want to go to the hospital within limits. There's certain limits. There's also types of calls. So if it's trauma, heart attack, strokes, Wadsworth Whitman ER is not capable to handle those, we're going to have to go out of the city. But where that comes into play is the time. So I can go to Wadsworth Whitman Hospital in a 5-minute drive, or now I have to go to Akron. So now the time, basically, normal 1-hour call to Wadsworth is going to be an hour and a half to 2 hours if I go out. So the more ambulances that go out, the potential of getting that 3rd or 4th ambulance call that we have to either call mutual aid or additional staffing to bring in to handle those. So that also drives mileage on the ambulances that you'll see, so more miles that we're putting on them. Any other questions on that page? All right, the next page, just some in-house training, we try to do with the snow season. We have a plow on truck 7. We want to make sure everybody knows how to use that. Even though the sledding hill is closed for the winter, we've had rescues there, so we wanted to make sure everybody was up to speed on that. And then again, some of the events that we had, I know Chief Dorland mentioned most of them. We participated again with the cops and the kids, the Feeding Medina County, and the bell ringing for the Salvation Army. So that's one thing with the safety forces. We try to work together, and we're one big team. So a lot of the same events we participate together in. And that completes my report, unless there's any questions.
It sounds like the fire department has quadrants and the police department has districts, right, that are different from what I'm familiar with, Ward 1, Ward 2. Is there a way to get copies of those maps?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So I know we're working on our annual report, and that's always in, and you can actually view our past annual reports on our website. But that's like the second or third page is a breakdown of where all the districts are for us. But I can provide a copy ahead of time before that, no problem.
Yep, we'll be happy to forward you a copy.
Okay, we'll go ahead and move into staffing updates, and I'm sure that Mr. Chafin was going to do this prior to, but can you just, for a baseline, set down what our authorized strength levels are and everything for each department currently?
Yep, so for the police department, our authorized strength, and when I say authorized strength, these positions are authorized by actual city ordinances. So that's our authorized strength by council. So for the police department, that's 34 officers. The 34 officers includes the 2 gentlemen that are in this room, our chief and lieutenant. We have 5 sergeants, 2 detectives, and then the rest is assigned to patrol. Within patrol, there may be other special assignments. Chief referenced some of them in his report. Bike patrol, SWAT, drug recognition experts. There's a myriad of other opportunities that they may have. Those are generally done through chief's appointment. But that's the basic setup for the police department. On the fire side, we have 16 full-time members. We've got, I think, a total of 48 or 49, Chief, with part-time.
Total departments right now is 49.
49 when you add in the part-time.
Yeah. So the 16 full-timers, those are the full-timers that work for 24 on, 48 off. And then there's myself and the assistant chief are also full-time.
So when we refer to, are we at full staff, we'll be talking about that 16 number on the fire side, fire and EMS. And then in dispatch, we are authorized for 11 full-time dispatchers, and we have 1 dispatch supervisor. Just as a reminder or refresh for the committee, as we were moving through the budget process last year, part of those cuts, we said that this year we would fill 10 of those 11 positions and still have that dispatch supervisor. So that is our current makeup as it stands. So as it goes to the police department, last week we just brought on our newest officer, Officer Haydu. So she's starting her field training process. I'm sure Chief could get into more of this, but from just a very high level, we're talking about 14 to 16 weeks of the new officer spending time with, we call them FTOs, field training officers. So while she has graduated and completed the academy and has all the certifications she needs to function as a police officer, we all know that day 1 out of the academy, you're not ready for that. And so we're going to spend about the next 14 to 16 weeks with various officers, various shift assignments, getting her up to speed and getting her ready. Very heavy, intensive review, whether it's with the field training officer, the shift sergeants, and even at various points, chief and lieutenant, before collectively as a group, they give the officer the stamp of approval that you are now able to operate on your own. We have 1 other officer candidate who is in the process. He has completed the background and most of all the other pre-hiring requirements. We are just waiting for him to graduate the academy, pass his OPATA exam. OPATA exam is just the acronym for the state exam that he has to pass before he starts, and working out his start date. So I think as it stands right now, we'll probably be looking to bring him on in early April. That is also contingent on actually passing and graduating all of those things. But as it stands right now, we do not have any concerns, and he seems like an excellent candidate. So we're excited about that. That would technically bring us to 34. However, going into this year, we had 2 anticipated retirements. One of those is in the process of coming to fruition, and the other one will either likely be within the year or the very beginning of next year. For the new members to the committee, I have not, during my tenure as chief or safety director, ever sat at a meeting where we have officially hit the 34 number. We've gotten very, very close. This is maybe the closest we've gotten in recent history. But again, we're going to have a couple retirements likely this year, and so we're going to need to go back to the testing process. It's a civil service position, so we have to give a test. There are structured interviews, second round interviews, and then I think it's important for the committee to know we do extensive background checks on these individuals, whether that's fingerprints, interviews with the detectives, CVSA, which is essentially a lie detector test. We are going to call all of their previous employers, previous boyfriends, girlfriends, whoever we can talk to, we want to talk to them. When the binders are done, they're usually anywhere from like this thick to this thick when it's done. They also go through a physical health assessment. They go through a psychological evaluation. They go through a drug screen. From top to bottom, we want to do as much as we can before we're giving these people the authority that they're going to have as an officer. So it's important to note that we're doing that as a committee. It's also important to note that those things take time. So when we talk about the hiring process, there might be a couple of meetings where it seems like I'm talking about the same people. It's because I am, and they're still working their way through that process. So that's where we're at on the police side. Fire and EMS, we did have a resignation from the fire department, but we still had an active list. We had a great candidate on that list, and as of today, I think right before the meeting, Chief was able to talk to that candidate, and he will be starting his process. It's done, so he is going to start at the end of the month, so we will be back to full-time staffing on the fire department. And then with dispatch, we have 2 current openings, and we have 2 candidates that are in the background process for that as well too, and they continue to move through that process. So with those 2, that should bring us to the 10, presuming that everything in the background and all of those checks and psychological evaluations work.
Pretty good start to the year. Fingers crossed.
2 out of 3 isn't bad, right?
Yeah.
That's any questions about staffing or specific questions for the chiefs about how those processes work or what we're looking for or why they take so long? I know that's a pretty frequent question, and we get it. We would like to be able to do this very, very quickly, but as mentioned, especially with the police department, even dispatch. Dispatch is our point center for all of the calls that all of our members, police, fire, and EMS, are going on, and they also have access to some really critical, important data, and we need to make sure that we're bringing the right people into those positions and that they have the trust that we're going to give them to be in those positions. So it does take a long time, but we really do want to make sure that we are checking everything before we're making those.
And our philosophy has always been that we'd rather spend the extra time to hire the right person than not hiring the right person, because it takes a ton of time for training and a lot of money to train these people just to have them decide it's not the right career for them or they're not fit for the position. Then we have to go back to square one. So we've passed up many candidates that other agencies may hire, but we look for the right one and we take the extra time. So we'd much rather, not be at full strength for a period of time, or take a longer period of time to go through the hiring process in order to get the right people.
We will put people through the academy as well too, but that's an important distinction because that's almost a 6-month process now. So that also takes some time, and that adds to, if you have 6 months for them at the academy, and then that's followed by that 14 to 16 week field training period. I mean, you're almost a year in before they actually, and that's an important distinction. When we have people that are in FTO, field training, they are not allowed to act on their own. So that means they can't fill shifts for us. They don't count towards shift strength for us. So that officer doesn't, in the truest sense of the word, really become an officer until they get that stamp of approval and they're cleared from that field training process. Then they get assigned to a shift, then they count to those numbers, then they can help fill overtime, off-duty jobs, things of that nature. So while we might be, for example now, with our pending retirement technically at 33, well, one individual we talked about, she's an FTO, she doesn't count. The other individual isn't technically here yet, so he doesn't necessarily count. We have another officer at the academy right now. He's going to come out and go into that. So just caution when examining that number, because if we say, hey, we are at 34, but we have 3 or 4 officers in training, really for all intents and purposes, we're still at 31 until they come out. So.
When is will we be going on the next testing date? Are you?
So I need to follow back up with HR Director McCullough and discuss the timing. If we have another retirement pending, if we can time those tests out. The other thing to keep in mind too is the academy schedules. Not to get too out into the weeds and not to get too far down the rabbit hole, but it is an important consideration. So generally speaking, our preferred academy to use is the Ohio State Highway Patrol Basic Police Academy. It's a residential academy. It is what I would describe as more paramilitary in its structure. They go above and beyond the regular training requirements. And we've had a number of officers that have gone through that academy that I think it's fair to say have had great careers after that as well too. A number of our current sergeants as supervisors, that was their intro into the academy, but they spend more time in the mat room for defensive tactics, they spend more time at the range, they spend more time with traffic stops and driving instruction, just things that regional academies, nothing against them, but they just have different skills, they have a much larger cadre of people to pull from, and they also have the facilities to do things that you just can't do at a regional academy. There is a benefit to the city as well too. That academy is free, but they only accept sponsored candidates, meaning they have a guaranteed job with an agency before they can go there. So they run 2 academies each year, because again, we're talking about an almost 6-month period, so they start in February and they start in August. There are other regional academies. We have sent officers there. The University of Akron has one. Kent State has one. Lorain County Community College has one. But when you're starting to do those, now you're adding lots of commute time, which is a lot of extra time for them to be driving back and forth to these academies. And again, back to just the overall training perspective. Those do cost, and they can cost anywhere from $5,400 to about $7,200. So when we're weighing this out and we're saying, okay, here's the police department's training budget for the entire year. If we want to send this person to an academy, we just cut almost a quarter, maybe even a third, depending on where we're at in the year, of the rest of the available training funds for the rest of the department. When we're in a pinch and the schedule sort of calls for that, and that's what we want to do, then that's the math that we'll do when we get to that decision. So for right now, the OSP Academy, the next one would start in February. They are taking those applications about 90 days in advance back in November. So if we're looking at the next August one, that means we probably have to have somebody ready to go by May. Maybe we have more insight by then as to whether or not we're going to have 1 or 2 positions to fill. So we need to kind of take some time and plan what that looks like. So even something as simple as, well, hey, we're down, let's get another test. There are other factors to consider because we don't want to have a long lead time where we've said, hey, Chief Dolan, we want to hire you as the officer. By the way, hang out and sit tight for 6 months until we can get you in the next academy. So we look at it from that as well, too.
Of those 34 that we're not quite there yet, but
Yes.
are those all full-time?
Yes. So we are.
So we don't have any part-time?
We have the ability to have what we would refer to as an auxiliary officer.
Yes.
And they may be able to come in and pick up some extra off-duty jobs for us. They might be able to help us make property runs. So we've got evidence here at the police department. That evidence needs to go to BCI for testing or for examination. They could also help pick up shifts or add to a shift, if you will. We have not had auxiliaries for a few years now. We had auxiliaries in the past that were retired officers, which was great because they knew our policies, they knew our standards, they knew our procedures, and we knew them, so it made that process very easy for them to fill in. I will tell you that over the last 4 years as chief, we have been digging ourselves out of a recruitment hole, if you will. And that is a lot of stress on the organization, on the front end, the hiring process and everything that we just discussed, those backgrounds, those take the detectives off of their assignments to get those done as well too. But then the training side. So even when you're done with FTO, you're not really done with your training yet. It's going to take a long time for you to feel comfortable as an officer. And so that's a lot of extra supervision from sergeants, lieutenants, chiefs, and so on. So as we've been focused on that, I mean, I think, Chief, do you know offhand in the last 4 or 5 years, how many officers we currently have that have less than 5 years experience? It's in the...
I have all that calculated, I just don't have it.
It's in the mid-teens, I want to say. I mean, I think we're talking like 13 or 14 officers that have less than 5 years experience. So in terms of a priority as an agency, whereas the auxiliary, they can provide us benefits and they could do some easing for us. If that auxiliary is not coming from the Wadsworth Police Department and we have to then train and get that person up to speed, we have to manage that they're getting the policy updates, that they're doing the monthly policy quizzes that are put out, all those things, that's a lot to keep track of from a supervision standpoint.
Sure.
It's been a lot of effort, and for the last 4, now going on 5 years, so much of that effort has gone into focusing on the new officers there's been a lot of tension, and we just haven't felt comfortable to say we need to make this a priority today to make this happen when we've got a bigger priority in front of us, which is onboarding and growing and training these new officers.
I just wondered, I mean, maybe the retire, rehire type.
It's
And going
certainly been a
after-
benefit for us
'cause-
in the past, and I think maybe in the future there might be opportunities for that again. And hopefully if we can get closer to this 34 number or get some stability in that within the next year, year and a half, then I think that would make sense. And the discussion that Chief and I would likely have is, okay, where could we get some quality auxiliary officers and how could we bolster this a little bit more to take some pressure off of, hey, those other duties, they're going to officers or supervisors right now. How could we lighten that load and maybe gain some more efficiencies?
We could recruit two from the sheriff's department.
That they do share similar policies and practices, and we work a lot with them, and yes, so that
That
is
we're here.
something on the radar, yes.
The difficulty with having that full staff that you want and it being years of trying to make that happen, is that due to the fact that there just aren't people pursuing that as a career, or is it due to that high standard that you guys?
Excellent question. So I will give you some just personal perspective. When I took the test in 2009, I got hired in 2010. I think there was 197, maybe 198 people that took a test. There was one position open. For our last test, we were in the low 30s.
Okay.
So I think that right there in and of itself is very telling. I would also add that that is not something that is just unique to the Wadsworth Police Department. That is something that regionally and nationwide we've seen in the law enforcement industry, if you will, that recruiting has been a big struggle. We also had a period of time where it was very common for officers to do something called drop, where they would complete their 25 years and then enter into a drop retirement program for a period of either 3 to 8, I think it's 5 to 8 years. We saw a lot of officers deciding to say 25 was enough, or 25 and I'd like to move to another agency in a maybe less demanding capacity than what I'm used to. So high numbers of retirements, very low numbers in terms of tests. I think even over that 4-year period, we had some that were in the high teens. So going from 200 to 30 on a good test, big drop off.
Okay.
Okay, any other questions? All right, well, let's go ahead and move into legislation.
Thank you. So you have a copy in front of you, and this is an ordinance authorizing the Director of Public Safety to return 4 used LifePak 15 heart monitors to Stryker and declaring an emergency. Some background on this. Last year, EMS needed to purchase new heart monitors. So these are one of their primary tools that they're using on just about every call. It also happens to be a very expensive item. It was at $199,000. And as a part of that sales proposal, or quote, if you will, we were going to receive $10,000 in trade-in for the heart monitors that we currently have. The amount for the new heart monitors required an ordinance, which was passed by council on February 18th. So I need you to just bear with me for a second. We're in the Wayback Machine here, back to February 18th, where this was passed. Prior to that passing, I would tell you that at the safety committee level, there was a lot of discussion about these packs were going to be traded in, and the actual amount we were going to pay out was $189,000, not $199,000. And there was also discussion and comments about it committee of the whole. When they were purchased, I think they placed the order shortly thereafter in February. They arrived somewhere around May, and when Stryker dropped off the new heart monitors, we said, hey, a part of the deal is the our current ones go back to you. Well, as we were closing out the year, Chief and myself have to fill out a capital asset disposal form, which means that any item that's over $1,000 actually has to have an ordinance associated with it.
Oh.
So we went back through the minutes, talked to the law director. The minutes clearly reflected that this was all being done as a package deal. However, in speaking to the auditor, there was concern that not having this, because the ordinance itself did not state these were being traded in, although it was discussed at committee and committee of the whole, that for audit purposes, we would actually need legislation. So just so everybody's clear, what I'm asking for is legislation to give away heart monitors that we have already given away. They've been gone since May. I can't get them back. There's no way of changing that. That was done in good faith. That was discussed. I think it's very clear. If anybody would like to see, I even brought the meeting minutes with me, and I have them if it's necessary. But I just want to be clear what we're talking about. So in order to resolve this, I actually require legislation so that it specifically says we have permission to have done this, even though it's already been done.
Any questions on that?
No.
So given that it's already happened and that I can't go back to May and get them back, I would just ask if council deems it appropriate, if we could pass that without discussion, just so that it's on the books. We can close out those capital asset disposal forms and we can shore up all of the paperwork on the back end.
Okay. I'll make a motion to recommend that we take this ordinance to authorize the Director of Public Safety to return the 4 Life Pack 15 heart monitors to Stryker and declare an emergency.
Yeah, I will second that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much. Second piece of legislation, which is actually, thank you to Law Director Proudfoot, hot off the presses, so I can distribute these as well too. Passing those down for me.
Thank you.
I will also got a packet of additional supplemental information if it's a benefit to the committee as well too. So I think our newest member, I think you were present when we had the public hearing for
Code
179 Grandview
enforcement.
property. So that is what this legislation is in relationship to.
It's also in my ward.
Would like to bring the committee up to speed. As you're aware, there was a lawsuit revolving this process. That has been dismissed by the Court of Common Pleas. Typically, if we talk about lawsuits and things of that nature, we usually go into executive session, but the dismissal is publicly posted to the court's website, so I feel comfortable sharing that in a public setting. So that now means that we can continue to move forward in the process. So I've got here in your packets, if you want to take a look at them later. You have a copy of the presentation that Code Enforcement Officer Caruso gave during the public hearing. There's also a letter from the fire chief, there's a letter from the Medina County Health Department, and then there's a copy of the dismissal notice that was taken from the court's website. Where the process, I guess we'll just do a quick review of the process and where we're at. So the process began in August. Our initial letters were sent informing the owner of the violations on August 11th. On August 26th, the owner filed a notice of appeal. On September 4th, we conducted an administrative search warrant involving the police department, fire department, county health, property enforcement officer Caruso. And on September 15th, we had the Property Maintenance Appeals Board. That appeals board ultimately denied his request for an extension. They did give him 6 days to get personal property out. On September 22nd and 23rd, the property was officially condemned, and then we held our public hearing on October 21st. The next step of the process is laid out in Ordinance 156.11 is the abatement of nuisance, and that is the demolition of structure. That basically we require councilmatic authority to move forward in the process and actually take the next steps of tearing down that property and cleaning it up. That was paused after the public hearing because of the lawsuit, but because the lawsuit has now been dismissed, we're in a position to continue that process. And so this piece of legislation is giving us the authority to do that. Mr. Proudfoot, I know you were working on that directly, so I would also offer for the committee, if you have any specific legal questions, Mr. Proudfoot is here, which I appreciate, so I'd be happy to have him chime in. Or Mr. Proudfoot, if I haven't covered anything that you would like covered, please let me know.
No, you did. The only thing that was left before we could proceed with this legislation was the dismissal, because as part of our nuisance abatement code, the property owner has to be able to go through the entire appellate process, so he has to sufficiently be provided appeals. The last one was the county police court, and as Director Chief had said, that's been dismissed as of January 6th. So here we are in we're essentially just asking now to permit the code enforcement officer to go ahead and start the demolition process. And that's all pursuant to 156.11, as Director Chapin said. You can read through the procedures right there. This has been an ongoing issue since before I even started with the city. So Mr. Russo, our code enforcement officer, has done a great job for us on this. It's made quite a few individuals in that neighborhood feel a little bit better about their own properties, knowing that this is being done.
So this would give us the authority. We've already explored different quotes for asbestos testing. Obviously, we need to do that first before we see if there's remediation. But we also have funds and planned and have quotes for what the demolition and sort of restoration. They have to leave the property they can't just tear down the house and leave a giant hole, so they have to backfill and those things as well too. So we've been working behind the scenes to make sure that we have that information ready, and once we have council's authority to do that, then we'll move forward with that process. Obviously, if anything comes up along the way, whether it's extensive asbestos remediation or something else that comes up that we're not anticipating now, we may have to come back to council to talk to things about in terms of funding, but we do have funds budgeted for this project this year as well. So just want to be clear, if it's passed, there will not be equipment out there immediately the following day. We still have steps to complete, the contracts to arrange, and dates to set after that. So.
If I can interject, I think it's important to note that this is going to cost the city money, obviously. However, I think the benefits greatly outweigh any cost. But in furtherance of that, we can at some point put a lien against the property for whatever we expend here. There's a procedure through Ohio Revised Code that would allow the clerk of council to gather all those numbers, certify the numbers, and then we can proceed utilizing Ohio Revised Code and put a lien up against the property. So if it is sold at some point, we can get paid a portion of the proceeds.
No, I know, obviously this is already in process and that this is going to happen, but in the future, is it possible, and I don't even know if it's legal, to see if someone's willing to purchase that property before we incur the expense and they agree to complete that abatement and demolition?
I would defer to the law director, but I would say yes, but not necessarily with our involvement, if that makes sense. If someone was willing to take on that property, individual that owns the property is willing to sell and engage in that contract and that amount without undue influence from the city, helping shape that process or shape price or costs or anything else, then I think that's something that could be examined, but maybe not necessarily directly from the city.
Director Chapin is correct. However, you have to remember too, the individual owns not just the home, but also the property. We're just raising the property, the home itself. They'll still own the ground underneath.
Okay. He still owns the...
we are condemning the building or structure through our code enforcement. So that's where we can put the lien against it, and once it's sold, we can attempt to recoup what we can.
Yeah, essentially, we're not taking ownership of the house. We are literally just abating the nuisance in that area. But he'll still maintain ownership, could sell the lot, and those type of things.
So because he's still the owner, he's the one that you're actually putting the lien against. You're putting against his property.
Well, yeah, well, let me take a step back. You will put a lien against the property itself, but you do that through the named individual property owner. Okay, so that would follow the property, the lien itself.
Yeah.
So it wouldn't be until he sells the property that you would have a chance to recover any funds?
But we could force proceeding if we wanted to. I don't know how fruitful that would be. I mean, that's something that could be discussed, but generally speaking, yes.
I mean, like if you wanted to rebuild, you could say, you have to pay this first, kind of thing, right?
I don't think so.
I guess that would be that second step that I was just talking about. I mean, we could force legal action against him and move against the property itself to see if we get paid. So.
Because the lien would be on the property, not the home that he's building.
Okay.
As it's relevant, again, completely council's discretion, committee's discretion and input, but as Law Director Proudfoot had mentioned, this has not just been a process for us since August. This has been a process for the neighbors and the neighborhood in that area for not even months, years. There was a fire back in 2019 that damaged neighbors' properties that they have never been made whole on. So I guess in terms of timing, or if we're talking about emergencies or suspending the rules, my preference would be to move as quickly as we can so that we can start finally taking some real action. But again, defer to the committee and defer to council as a whole.
To move to take this to council? Yeah, I can do that.
Okay, I second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
With a recommendation of suspending the 3 reading rule.
Yeah, I'm not, I don't know how I feel about that though, because do we want to give that property owner, is there, like, do we need to give them time?
He's already had a public hearing in front of not just the Board of Zoning Appeals at one point, but also he had a public hearing in front of City Council. So, we're not required to do it. I don't see any reason to give him any other opportunities. It's been a decade.
Okay, so there's nobody that we're circumventing by suspending that 3 year, okay, yeah.
This has been going on for a long time.
Okay.
This is a welcome, very welcome ordinance. So, okay, and we'll put it up to vote, so. All right, with that, we'll go ahead and
Okay
move
with that?
into our
Okay.
Marks
Okay.
Tower project update.
Sure, so I would imagine that this would probably be a regular reoccurring item for the safety committee as we move forward, but just some updates on where we're at. So as of December 30th, we are under contract with a professional civil engineering firm by the name of Verdantis. They're actually out of Newark, Ohio. They do significant work with Marks. This is their area of expertise, and so we are glad to have them as a partner with us. Obviously, building new towers, there is a lot of compliance and regulations that have to be met. So Verdantis is going to help guide us through Federal Communications Commission requirements, the National Environmental Policy Act compliance, National Historic Preservation Act compliance, and the Endangered Species Act compliance. The National Environmental Policy Act, NEPA for short, they're going to be partaking in those forms and things that they have to do with that. They're also going to help us do environmental studies, tribal coordination, FAA and ODOT, aviation studies. They have to do antenna structure registration, topographical surveys, geotechnical exploration. Also, they have to engineer and design the actual tower in addition to all of these other things. And then they are also going to they're going to provide us assistance with bidding, but also more importantly, they're going to remain with us through the construction process. So I am not a structural engineer. I have never built a radio communications tower before. Unfortunately, we do not have a structural engineer on staff here at the city as well too. So having those services as the construction process actually happens, I think is very important and very helpful for us too. So that is sort of a quick high-level rundown of all the services they are going to provide for us. Right now, the quote that we are looking at is $81,355. So that's where we're going to stand on the engineering side of the tower build. I would tell the committee that about $13,750 of those, that encompasses the construction administration, geotechnical inspections. So as the tower is being built, the pads are being poured, geotechnical inspections, and other reimbursable expenses. So while I am going to stick with the $81,355 number, there is a potential that we could see a reduction in those. I wouldn't anticipate it being a significant amount though, so that's probably going to be the number that we'll see when this portion of the project is done. Where are we at right now? They have open OOPS tickets. We are waiting a date for our first site survey. We're going to have a first in-person meeting as well. We've had several phone calls with myself and engineering to get it started, but they are starting the process on all of those things that I have listed. They are estimating that we should likely have construction bid documents by sometime in April. They've also said that when they put projects out to bid, they usually cap them at 180 days and usually see the towers completed before the 180 days. So I would just say, as we sit here right now, and we've not faced any major setbacks or hurdles in the project yet, it's very realistic to expect that we could have a fully functioning constructed radio tower before the end of the year. So
location again?
We are talking on Oak Street, so if you know where the Grizzly Academy is now, behind there's a baseball field, and behind that there is an empty lot that used to have a city water tower on it. The address is actually on Oak Street. I don't remember the address off the top of my head, but that is our target location because the city already owns that property. I will say, since it had a water tower on it before, I do not anticipate any geotechnical issues as it relates to there, but we want to make sure we go through all those processes, do all that testing, soil samples and everything else to make sure that it is actually fit. So presuming that all that initial front part of the process goes well, we should be in a good position to actually get this project done before the end of the year, which I think would be really important for police, fire, EMS, and dispatch. So, any questions on the tower project itself or anything that we just covered?
None for me.
None.
Okay, with that, we'll go ahead and move into the last item, well, second to last item on our agenda, and that is our safety committee report discussion.
So, Mr. Chairman, I can turn it over to you. I know we had some discussions about, what we might like to change. We've got a new committee, even new chiefs here relatively, so it would be a great time if we want to make changes to make those changes. And I guess I would offer up to the council members to say, as a committee, what's important for you to know, what's important for you to know on behalf of your constituents, or how can we best arm you with information for those constituent interactions. I think the chiefs are prepared to talk a little bit about what they think are some of the more important items in there and what they would like to see. But we, on our side of the table, would certainly want to know what you as council members want to see or would have a preference for. So
Yeah.
open it up for discussion.
I would love to hear what the chiefs say. I do know through our discussion that the report that's generated, there's a lot of data in there, and I do know that some of that data is hard to generate. It's from what I've been told is the software that, I don't know if it's both departments use or whatever, some of those reports are pretty heavily labor intensive for their assistants to generate. So one thing that I would love to see is what do our current systems generate? Like, what is their built-in reporting functions as they stand? But then, yes, welcome it, to get an idea of what committee members and both the chiefs think about, the data. And if there's a better format or how do you want to do it?
So I'll go first. So the statistics, as we've talked about, gives us a snapshot on the surface as far as trends go. A lot of times those can be explained away by different factors like personnel or shift activity that prevents officers from doing certain things, organizational structure, weather, all sorts of factors. So when we look at those stats, it's helpful for us to kind of delve into those and find out, where those deviations are coming from. So, like I did today, you can, bring to light some of those stats that seem like they're out of the ordinary and explain those, because I think it's important to talk about them and just make everybody aware as far as what's driving those numbers. I think it's important to promote our officers and their successes like we do with the Officer of the Month, and talk about maybe how different technologies and pieces of equipment are aiding the officers and why it's important to continue to fund certain things and how it relates to case successes and makes our officers' jobs easier and helps them solve crimes and contribute to just the wellness of the community. So I think it's important to show how we're using the equipment that we purchase with our budget funds to make policing more successful in the city. Talking about staffing, I think, is important also, because it's good to find out who we're adding to the department, who we're losing, and how that's affecting our department with changes in experience levels. We're a very young department, and that comes with pros and cons. One of the cons would be, it's getting those officers trained up, and it requires the veteran officers to assist them with that FTO process like the director spoke about. And when we're taking experienced officers and doing the FTO training, that's taking them off the road also. So now we have 2 officer cars, and we're reducing the number of officers that we have available on shift. So the more people that we have in training, the less officers we have available to answer calls and make traffic stops and do things like that. So it's those highlights that I think, we should touch on each month instead of getting down into the weeds of covering every single statistic. Within the budget, we have those line items that mention specific things that we want to purchase. So I love to touch on those when we meet those goals, and were we able to acquire that item, or did we have to dedicate that money to something unexpected? Where did we gain efficiencies with utilizing the budget and spending our money? And I think we spend our money very wisely throughout the year in making our money go as far as we can to benefit the city. So in my mind, those are the things I'd like to touch on each month, with our reporting.
I would agree with a lot of what Chief Dorland said. Yeah, for me, when I look at these, for us on the fire side, our report system pretty much has all this. So it doesn't take me that long to bring all this. Now, I think it was mentioned in your email, pretty much it's the same. Like when we look, for example, the type of property calls, every month I can guarantee you the 1 and 2 family dwellings is going to be the most that's being used. So do we have to necessarily dive into that each? I'll provide the reports if you want them. I use them for our annual reports, so I'll continue to do those. But to me, I always like to look at the trends, all right, from last year to this year. Are we seeing? And the big one is with staffing, is the callbacks that we're getting. Are people coming back? If not, all right, is there something that we have to do different, whether it's within our department or you as council, do we have to do something different in order to meet those goals? So staffing is definitely a big one to look at. Call volume, we saw an 8% increase. If we continue to see that increase, something is going to have to be done. Usually it falls with staffing on that. I agree, and I think it would be a good thing on our budgets when we do have, purchase those capital items that maybe necessarily don't go through council, but it's in our budget books that you were approved. Hey, we met that goal, as Chief Dorland said. When we buy certain pieces of equipment, or how we're using it is a good one. Again, I know we touch on it, but the special events, things that we do, because I think that's important. That means a lot to the community. Not everybody's using EMS or fire, but the community activities that we do, that shows the community's money where it's going to, and they can see that. So I think that's important to touch on as well. The special events that we participate in, the PR events that we're doing, I think that's good. And then again, when there are big capital items such as, no progress has been done, but we currently have a fire tanker that's being built. The first year, it's pretty much nothing's happening, but I think in the spring of this year, things will start progressing, and when that does, to report how progress is going. I think that's important to let the committee know. But I'm willing to, whatever you guys see as an interest that you want to know, we can always do.
Yeah, I guess a couple of comments from me, and I think a great example was the firefighter recall explanation this evening. I think, although I may have heard that before, I didn't recall that. See what I did there? The fact that you are getting numbers back to the big calls. So we look at that number and we're seeing, the percentage, up or, down 9% from last month. The average firefighter recall is whatever, 2 point, whatever. Well, that's just telling part of the story. Mm-hmm. Sometimes looking at numbers, it's very, you can spin them however you need to. So what I'm most interested in, from my standpoint, is the numbers and the stats that you guys are looking at to make the decisions to do your job and make, to determine that you want to tell the committee and the public about. So not, if it's easy to print that report off, I'll look it over, before every single meeting. But I think as you start to talk about the trends that you're seeing that are going to drive the decisions that you're going to make the department better, that's the kind of information I think would be great to spend time discussing. Because maybe there's a deeper discussion that maybe sometimes when we're going over all of this, we tend to gloss over it. you know, and that type of thing. I am very intrigued to see the year-over-year numbers. I mean, I don't know if you guys are making, you know, swift decisions based on I'm doubting that, you know, from month to month, you're making huge decisions based on something that comes out of a report. Sure, you may monitor it to say, I wonder why that was last month, and my hope, and I have the utmost confidence you guys are looking at numbers you need to look at to make these decisions. That's kind of my 2 cents. I also don't know that I want to put a bunch of undue burden on an assistant that could maybe be doing something else that's adding to it. So I am open for anything. You know, we have the section on the staffing report. You brought up that, you know, that's interesting. You know, to see every month. That's probably a number I'd like to see written down in a report, right? Is what is our authorized strength level? You know, because then it's just adjusting the numbers. How many officers do we have in training that month? So you're not saying it every month. You know, we're looking at it, and sure, you know, it's just something that we kind of understand. You explained it. We can touch on it. You know, so instead of a verbal report on that every month, that would maybe be one that's easy to, you know, for us to see in a report. But that's kind of my feelings.
I agree. Makes sense.
So your reporting software is pretty elaborate and can pull all this stuff up. On the police side, it's not quite the same.
We can pull very specific numbers. You know, the numbers that we provide are not all that labor intensive, and it's not a problem
Well, I
to
think
pull those numbers.
Our administrative assistant is doing quite a bit of work behind the scenes. So in all fairness, like I wasn't, and Chief may not be, but the reports are there, but it's putting it into the reporting format as well. Like the report that it might take a couple different reports to see. Running the report is not a problem. It's then taking the data,
Putting it into a
putting it
presentable
into a
format.
that works and things like that.
Well, it might be nice, you know, as she sees the type of information we're pulling, she might be the perfect person to ask and say, hey, you're doing this every month. Is there a way that you could see a time savings to present roughly the same data? Maybe it's just a different format that we get used to seeing it in.
And we have had those conversations here last month with the interest of reducing some of the repetitive data, getting rid of some of the graphs that just seem to duplicate what we were already seeing. So we've been factoring those efficiencies, you know, planning to change
Chairman, I
it.
think you made the point, like, is the committee truly interested on like what the busiest day of the week was? And these things just sort of developed over time, so I would say that's probably not necessarily probably hours of the day. I think initially the hope was, hey, this is why staffing is important, this is why having X number of dispatchers all the time is important, calls can happen anytime, but I think that's just a given and probably not necessary.
Well, from me listening to the reports for a couple of years, it could be Tuesday, Friday, Sunday, it could be 0800, it could be 1700, you know, it doesn't, I mean, the days and times are, but if that's something you're using to make decisions, then it might be worthwhile to be in a report. If that's not something that you're looking at, I mean, your shifts, right? I mean, you run it, so I agree with that, so maybe.
I think some of the data has come out of preferences by committee members in the past,
Sure.
like accidents in the square or multi-crash intersections. Is that data you still want to see? Because that is a little bit labor intensive to compile that information. If you want to continue to see it, we'll continue doing it, but if it's not
So,
important to you, then.
Just for the committee members, that is, they give the report on multi-accident intersections, and then we recently started pulling the report that shows the type of accident it was, because you don't know if it was just someone started to go and stopped. So, I mean, those are great to see, and, I mean, my other thought is maybe some of this data, while extremely important, maybe from month to month, it's not. Maybe some of these reports are run quarterly, or, you know, so you're only spending, you know, you're pulling all the data, you're doing it anyway. Maybe we review some of these, you know, just every so often. And I think what's even nice about that is I think it's hard to see trends over month to month. I think it's a lot easier to see trends over a little bit longer period of time. So maybe it is, you know, every 3 months or maybe every 6 months, and then end of the year. Maybe those mid-year and end-year reports are a little bit more intensive than what we would see on our monthly meetings.
A larger data set. a larger data set.
Yeah, it's just hard to see.
Especially early in the year where it's like, oh, well, we're 10% down from last year. Well, it's just January.
Yeah.
By the end of the year, it could be the same, higher, lower.
Right.
You don't really.
And that's why this report today, I'll go back and I've looked at it prior to, and I'll look at it again because we're actually comparing, 2025 to 2024, which we're the city, right? We're making decisions. We'll start making decisions for next year in a few months as we start to talk about budgeting and what you guys want to do. So it's just my 2 cents. Sorry.
Obviously, it's my first meeting, so circle back to me in 6 months and I'll have a lot more to contribute. But, and also, I'm always looking for less paper than more. I'm not the sort of person that wants to create reports that just don't need to be there. But for me, I almost think that it would be useful if it's not a problem and it doesn't need to be full color or whatever, but maybe some of this information plotted on an actual map to see where the trends are. Just a suggestion that.
And once you get those district maps, you'll be able to see, oh, District 2 is, the commercial areas up north, and District 1 is the primarily the eastern residential areas, and District 3 is more the industrial and southwest portion of the city. So once you see those maps, it might give you a better idea to identify where those calls are from month to month and how those districts align.
Okay.
Do we have any physical, when's the annual report going to be, when's that typically done?
It varies. Usually, I try to have mine out around March.
I think that's typically
Yep.
what it's been for the last at least 4 years.
Do we have any physical copies of last year's report still?
We have electronic copies that we could very easily turn into physical copies. I know when we do the new council orientation with safety with me on the 21st, I was planning on distributing those. And,
Oh, good, okay,
But
that's
yeah,
what I was saying. I mean, I have
Yeah.
mine, it might be good,
Yeah, I
that
can-
might be helpful to go through, just to look at an annual report to see what, because that data doesn't change, right? We know which district's going to have the most call, it's the same every,
Yeah, and I know on the fire team, I said, a lot of our annual reports, it's not just last year and this year, it's multi-year, 5, 10-year trends. So you can see those trends as well.
I will say if you tend to be a numbers person, I'll just give you the caveat. So the monthly data, so if we're looking at reports, for example, well, how that report is written and the case type and the charges that are in there, they actually can change over time. You can go to a call thinking it's one thing, and by the time you're done with the investigation, it can actually change into something completely different. So on a month-to-month basis, I just add that as a little bit of caution, because you're like, why are these two different? Well, until that report is finalized, closed, approved by a supervisor, and ready to go, those things are all changeable until it becomes final. But it's at the moment in time that report was pulled to get that data, that's what it looks like. So there can be little bits of fluctuations between these monthly reports and what gets into the annual report. It's not just because we're the police department and we happen to be very bad at math. It's those things can change over time. So just a little insight if you catch those along the way.
well, maybe next month, maybe we run some reports and say, hey, this is what we've sat down, this is what we think is the most valuable data that we would like to share every month. I'd maybe think about the 6-month mark and, the end of the year, maybe those are a little bit more. And
I like the idea of the quarterly check-in or 6-month marks. I think that might be beneficial to
Yeah.
get data in chunks. To your point, you have a bigger data set, you might actually be able to see something out of it. So,
Yeah.
makes sense.
Okay. Well, I can't wait to see them. Yeah, and I'm all for that too, decreasing the amount of paper.
Yeah.
I don't think these need to be in color, that's all ways to save a little bit of money here and there, so it doesn't, so. Okay. Anything from our chiefs or safety director? Anything else from the committee?
No,
If not, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
so moved.
We are adjourned.
You are watching WCTV,
Wadsworth Community Television.